Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Through the Desert as well as the Bizarre set of expansions. I realize now it sounds like I said the Bizarre set of expansions. What I meant to say, it's the Bizarre. It doesn't sound better. This is Through the Desert Bizarre. It's a set of 4 expansions for Through the Desert in this newest version of Through the Desert from Allplay. Through the Desert is designed by Reiner Knizia. It has had several iterations. This is the newest one of them, and it's a 2 to 5 player abstract area control game. There's a lot of things going on here, but the basic idea is in this game you're going to be placing down camels onto this board in order to do a variety of things, but mostly getting points. You're going to get points as you place camels down onto individual tiles, taking the tile and the points on them. You'll also get points as you connect your caravans to these oases, and you'll get 5 point tokens every time you do that. That's going to be 2 of the most basic ways you get points. We'll talk about the other ways shortly, but just trying to give you a general idea of placing camels down is going to set you up for how you earn points. This is where it's very important to distinguish the fact that the camels are not the player colors. There is no red player in a classical sense, or at least there's no red player with this set of camels. Rather, all the players can use these camels to expand their own caravans. Rather, what there are caravan leaders. All of the current camels on the board, well, at least once we remove that one, all of the current caravans on the board represent the leaders of these various caravans. So, for example, the blue player has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 caravan leaders in each of the 5 camel colors. Because what's going to be happening is every player has access to all colors of camels, but when you place down camels, you are expanding your leader's caravan, and this is where you get into the placement rules, because you can never have 2 caravans of the same color touching each other. What does that mean? That means on your turn, for example, a basic turn is going to be taking 2 camels and placing them out onto the board. So let's say, for example, this player over here grabs 2 camels and they place them like that. Now, if it were this player's turn, this player can go ahead and take a purple camel and place it over here. That is a perfectly legal move. And let's take a second caravan camel and connect it to this oasis, at which point they just got 8 points. 3 points for the watering hole and 5 points for connecting this caravan to an oasis. Each caravan can only connect to an oasis 1 time. So each caravan can connect to each oasis 1 time. But let's say it's now the blue player's turn. The blue player can place a camel over here. That would be a legal move. They get 5 points. They cannot place a camel over here. By placing a camel over here, they're connecting the 2 red caravans, and that's not legal. Every color of caravan has to remain distinct on the board, which allows for a lot of blocking. For example, by placing over here, they've now blocked this player from touching the oasis, because this player can't actually place a camel here, because then they'd violate the rule. So there's a lot of positioning that is going to happen in this game as you place camels down in a way that helps you out, but also stops the other players from being able to achieve their goal. This is a very tight board with not enough room for all the players and a whole lot of getting in each other's ways. That's the basic idea of the game. You place down 2 camels, you try to set yourself up for success through capturing watering holes, through touching oases, as well as having the longest caravans. You see, the third way you score points is at the end of the game, in each of the 5 camel colors, you're going to award 10 points to whoever achieved the longest of that camel color. The longest red camel caravan is going to get 10 points for that player. The longest green camel caravan, etc., etc. The last way you score points, at least in the base game, is going to be by enclosing areas. Throughout the course of the game, players have the opportunity to fully enclose an area. Let's make a simple one over here. Let's say this player went 1, 2 on their next turn, and then the turn after that, they went 1, 2 over here. By doing so, they didn't just get this tile, but rather whenever you enclose an area, and enclosing an area is either completely enclosed in your camels or the edge of the board, and yes, that includes this mountain range over here. Whenever you enclose an area, you're going to first of all get the watering holes in there, but at the end of the game, you're going to score 1 point per enclosed tile in that region, which is going to be the 4th way you score points. So again, you have watering holes, you have oases, you have longest caravans, and then you have enclosing areas. All of that is going to be how you score points in this game. Game end is triggered when a single camel color runs out. So as soon as 1 camel color runs out, that's going to trigger end game, and that's going to be a very tense situation because all players are competing with the same camel color, so anyone can dip a little heavier into a pot if they think they are better set up for success on the main board. That's the basic premise of the base game. There is a reverse night side to this board as well, along with a river, some different terrain, so there's a different side to the base game, but then there's also the 4 expansions. The 4 expansions are going to add, 4 expansions. There's going to be a replacement for the watering holes. You have a bunch of these tokens over here that will go into the board, and these tokens can either give you trade goods, which whenever you have a set of trade goods, then the game will be worth 10 points, or alternatively, you have these tiles over here, which are going to be these extra camel placements. So when you earn an extra camel placement, you you'll be able to trade that in to be able to place an extra camel, including the turn you bought it, at a limit of 1 per turn. Those are going to be replacing many of the watering holes on the board, so when you're going to remove some of the point watering holes, shuffle a bunch of those in, and that's going to completely change what you're going for on the board. You're not just going for points, you're now also going for extra camel placements. The next thing you're going to have is you're going to have trying to connect villages to bazaars. Basically, you're going to have spots over here where you can place little stacks over here of tokens, 15, 10, and 5 over here. So the first player to connect will get 15, the next player will get 10, the next player will get 5, and you're trying to connect your caravans between an edge of board village spots. So you can see village spots over here, like you see a village, a village, a village. When you connect a caravan to a bazaar, you'll get the top tile of that bazaar. Each bazaar requires a new village to connect to, so even if you have villages that are close by, you have to do a one-for-one relationship between them, but that's going to give you another way of getting points and another placement opportunity on the board, another thing to be mindful of as you're going. Then there's going to be a set of cards over here. We have these Jin cards over here. I can't remember which ones are Jins or which ones are, these are rival, whatnot, but over here you're going to set up 2 of these at the beginning of the game, and those are going to give you goals that the first person to achieve that, or not necessarily first, sometimes it could be first, sometimes it could be just whoever did it best, is going to get 10 points for each of those cards. In this example, the most watering hole tokens, including trade goods, that's going to be 10 points to whoever gets the most of those tokens. And this one over here is the most camels in your smallest caravan, incentivizing players to be as evenly spread on their caravans as possible. That one would really mess with me because I almost always have one caravan that just has 1 camel that I didn't invest into at all. But either way, that's going to be extra ways of scoring points. Put out 2 of those, or alternatively, you can put out however many you want if you want to, but the rules say 2, so do 2 of those, and that gives you another way of scoring points. And then lastly, we have these Jins over here. These are going to give you rule changes whenever a player connects to an oasis. So as soon as a player connects to an oasis, you're going to flip over the top card, and it's going to give you a rule change that's going to affect all the players until the next time a player connects to an oasis. This one says watering holes cannot be placed on. Suddenly this entire board changed as far as what you can do until another player connects to an oasis, at which point you remove that and replace it with the next one. You have to place 2 matching camels on your turn, as opposed to being able to take from different supplies. Those are going to be the 4 expansions that the game adds, and those are going to heavily mix up the somewhat static gameplay of the base game on its own, which is a good time to tangent into my review of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like. In general, I would say that the strategic punch this game has relative to how hard it is to teach, because it's not hard to teach, how easy it is to play, to learn. It's got a 4-page rulebook, typical for all play, teaches in a few minutes, it's fairly straightforward, and then the gameplay itself is like 30 to 45 minutes, and it gives you so much strategic punch for that time. The strategy condensed into that time period is very high and very rewarding, because everything you do in the game, there's an open smorgasbord of just all these options, but the problem is you can only take 2 camels per turn when you're placing, which means you have to condense all these possible options into the ones you think are most worthwhile, which every single turn involves you being cut off somewhere, cutting someone else off somewhere else, and hopefully being able to set yourself up to being able to gather the right oasis tiles, the right watering hole tiles, connecting to oases, and possibly setting up your caravans to enclose and cut off an area for extra points. And again, that's before you take into account the expansions and all the extra layers of strategy that's going to add to your decision space in this game. There's a million things that are good for you every single turn, so every turn is satisfying. Every turn you're like, look what I did. It feels satisfying to play this game because it feels like you're getting things done. You're getting points. You're setting yourself up. You're cutting off other players. You constantly feel clever for your moves, but then the next player feels clever for their moves because there's so many good moves. You're just trying to figure out the best moves for you at any given point. And so every move is tense. Every decision matters. Everything you're doing in order to win, it's just so much packed into such a light rule set as far as the game goes. The expansion is going to heavily mix up. The other side of the board gives you a little variety, and of course playing a game to game and the way players set up their camels is going to change the experience, but I say the expansions add a nice degree of variety to the experience that the base game is lacking a little bit. The expansions are going to give you more things to do as you play through it and get familiar with how the game works and the strategic elements you're playing through. The expansion will heavily mix that up with any of the 4 modules in any combination, including using all 4 of them, and that will give you a lot more change to the core experience that you're playing through. As far as things I don't like in the game, first of all, I kind of touched upon this already, already or hinted at it, but the base game I do think lacks replayability over time. As much as I do like the base game of Through the Desert, I do find that once you've played through it a few times, you've kind of seen the general vibe of what this game is doing. Sure, we'll set up our caravan leaders differently and it'll be a different game, but you're still going through that same core, abstract, straight like play styles, try to close things off, try to cut off your opponent. It's fairly straightforward and therefore fairly repetitious the more you play the game. The other side of the board does help, but I think the expansions really help so much quicker. The expansions, to me, have stopped this game from ever getting repetitious, so to speak, as far as playing through the game, because it always changes up what's happening on the board. And I actually have not mixed them all up. For the most part, I haven't mixed them all up to play them all at once, because I've enjoyed dabbling in one here, one there, and I'm sure at some point I'll put them all together, but right now I've been enjoying just slowly mixing up the core game experience with different combinations of the expansions. So it really, the core game is I think missing a little bit of variety, and the expansions really come in to fix that. Secondly, and unfortunately I don't have a fix for this one, secondly, I do think the visibility of the leaders on the table is constantly a problem. Whenever I've played this game, players struggle to at a glance see where their leaders are. Now this does help. Once you start investing in your caravans and placing camels down, players start to know which caravans are there, just because it's no longer a dot on the map. It's the caravan that you were trying to get here and you couldn't get here because someone blocked you. So as soon as your caravan starts to develop, it's a lot easier to see whose is whose and to know your own things, which is really the main thing that matters. But until that happens, early game is almost always a little rife with players not necessarily realizing where everything is at a glance, because visually it's hard to tell. I do think the plastic camels, there's an option to get plastic camels in this game. I do think the plastic camels improve that visibility, but I prefer the tactile pieces of wood instead. The wooden camels, I prefer them from a preference for the material, but the camels are... Either way, neither option is ideal, because I prefer the material of one, but the visibility of the other, and in both cases, you'd have to anyways get the extra upgrade deluxe set in order to get those extra camels anyway. As far as I can see others not liking, this game could otherwise be called Cut Off the Game. You are constantly cutting other players off, and you'll constantly feel rewarded for making clever moves that help you and and benefit you as the player, as whoever's turn it is. But other players will constantly have you getting in their way. This is not a game that is nice by any means. The redeeming factor is usually, as soon as you get cut off somewhere else, you have a good move that you can take somewhere else, because there's so many things happening on the board. But if this is a game where you're kind of locked into your plans playing out the way you want them to, that's just not going to happen. For every time you take a good move, you'll have been deprived of a good move somewhere else. And so if you don't like the core mean abstract nature of this game, it just might not be for you. And speaking of which, it's about as dry of an abstract as you can get. Yes, there is a theme and deserts and camels and all that, but ultimately you're placing pieces down the board in order to get to various tokens. The theme is very much pasted on, and if you don't like abstract games, I think this very much does feel like an abstract despite the pasted on theme. As far as final thoughts on Through the Desert, I've always enjoyed Through the Desert, but my biggest complaint with the original game was that it was a game that the more I played it, the more I felt I had seen the experience and gotten enough out of the experience. To me, this newest version from Allplay, specifically with the expansions, the bizarre expansions, which again sounds like I'm saying the bizarre expansions, specifically with those 4 expansions, really mixes up the gameplay and takes this game to the next level for me. I'm coming in at a 4 out of 5, and that very much is based on those expansions being present to mix up that gameplay. Otherwise, it would be settling in at a 3.5 out of 5, because as much as I do enjoy the game, it does get repetitious until you throw in the variety that those expansions add to the game. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out Rebirth, another new Reiner Knizia tile-laying game, as well as Cascadito. One of them is from, oh my gosh, I'm going to blank on this, not Board and Dice, I always forget this. Oh my gosh. One of them is from, Cascadito is from Bitewing Games, and Rebirth, I am blanking on, it's from the people who did Modern Art. Why am I blanking on this? I'm going to sit there. This entire end of video is going to be Art Society, Mighty Boards. Rebirth from Mighty Boards is another one to check out, but both Rebirth and Cascadito are newer tile-laying games that feel like they are building off that same core DNA in Through the Desert, but taking it in very different directions. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.